I'm recording. Awesome. So let's start this. Okay, so I'm assuming most of you guys are freshmen, maybe a few sophomores as well. But welcome to Purdue. Welcome to the CS department in particular. Also, I think there are a few data science majors as well in the chat, so not being discriminatory. So the objective of this whole workshop or this whole hour is to essentially introduce you to many aspects of the Purdue CS community. How different things like, how what classes you will be taking, what sort of tracks to take, what kind of classes to expect in the future, things like research, things like, how to stay healthy because CS can get pretty stressful. There's a lot of these things that I wish that I knew beforehand. It's better to know about these things rather than experience them yourself first so that you can be aware and identify these things. So that's sort of what the whole purpose is. Also, we'll be talking about internships, job related things, a lot of the common questions that you have. And in particular, we'll open this up to you guys as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat whenever during the presentation, and we'll try to answer them. Also, towards the end, we'll have a Q&A as well. So let's begin. Yeah, go for it. Wait, okay, I'll talk about this, but I think yeah, okay, I'll talk about this a bit, and then Yuhao and Kevin, and I'm not sure who else is going to do the slide. Please feel free to chime in. Okay, so basically, there are multiple tracks throughout for to graduate with a CS degree, and they're all listed here. But before you actually take these track classes, you'll be taking some particular CS classes before you get there. And those are on your left-hand corner. So a lot of you are probably taking CS 180 with either, I think Dunsmore is teaching it. So that's a Java-based class. 182 is a discrete math class. So you'll be learning, this will be an introduction to data structures and algorithms. And we'll be getting into why this is a very important class, especially for interviews. But this is essentially the benchmark, the core of the remainder of your CS career classes as well. Also, you'll be taking programming in C, so this will most likely be this will be your first low level class, and then 252 will obviously be your systems programming. Yeah, go for it, Yuha, if you want to get into the different tracks and whatnot and what the exact functions are.
I mean, yeah, I can talk a little bit more about the core first. So generally what happens is if you're a freshman, you'll be taking CS 180 in your first semester or freshman year. In your freshman year, second semester, you'll be taking 182, which is a challenging class according to most people. It's pretty much theoretical. And 240 and 240 and no, on CS 240, you'll be taking your second year, sophomore year, first semester. Like Farah said, this is low level programming in C. And then the following semester, basically your fourth semester at Purdue, you'll be taking actually, I think I messed up here.
I think you take 240 your second semester freshman year. No, yeah, second semester freshman year. So that will be your second semester. And you take 182 and 240 together.
Right. I'm sorry. Yeah, 182 and 240 is your second semester freshman year. And then 250 and 251 is your first semester
sophomore year.
First semester, second year. And in 251, they'll be teaching you about your data structures and a lot of algorithms, which will be coming really handy during your interview process, like how to sort and binary trees and all of that good stuff. And your fourth semester, it would be CS 252. That'll be kind of your last CS class that's like in your core before you choose which tracks you're heading to. And if you look on top of the chart, the table or the bullet points, those are the 10 tracks that you would head into, and you would choose basically one or two or maybe even three for your starting your junior year. Maybe you could start earlier, but most people start their junior year. For me, I personally am in machine intelligence and security. And like Farah said, classes on the right are not necessarily classes that you'll be taking, but Depending on which track you choose, there will be different requirements of classes that you have to take. So for me so far, I'm in machine intelligence. So I've only taken one class in that track, and I'm trying to tackle the rest next semester. So the class that I've taken so far is CS 373. I took it with Anario. Pretty good class to start with, but you know, there's definitely all of these. I can't really say that any of these classes really are particularly more important than each other because they cover different things. But I would say that CS 381 is also a really important class to take. I took it with Professor Blocky. It's similar to 251, but diving even deeper into algorithms, into harder concepts. And if you're able to do well in that class, you would pretty much be pretty prepared for interviews. And there are definitely other classes that we could go into, but holistically, I would say based on my experience, all the classes I've been pretty satisfied with all my professors. So shouldn't be a problem with which professor you pick, but definitely talk to people that have taken classes before with different professors, and just reach out to them before you actually pick out which professor or which semester you want to take that class in. So definitely just keep a circle around and just constantly talk to people and get to know how people think of professors and their way of teaching. That's pretty much what I can say about this slide.
Right. So obviously, a natural question to ask is, can you do multiple tracks? Yeah, you can actually do, apart from computational science and engineering, I think it's possible to do all of these tracks in a reasonable amount of time. When I say reasonable, it could be more than 4 years, and you should not be attempting to do a lot of these classes. If you have a lot of credits coming in beforehand, you might actually have the ability to do them. Because I know a few friends who are actually taking all these classes apart from computational science and engineering. That is because a lot of these tracks have overlaps. So for example, OS is a very common class. 381, I think, is pretty much required for all tracks now. And I think, what are some of the other popular classes? I think CS 471, yeah, for some reason, Introduction to Artificial Intelligence, even though you might think it's only like exclusively for machine intelligence, it falls into a lot of the other areas as well. So whenever you're actually planning out your classes, and if you're interested in getting, multiple tracks on your diploma, I'm not entirely sure how it shows up, but on your whatever your My Purdue plan or your actual graduation thing, make sure that it's sort of like a graphing problem almost, that okay, you want to take these tracks, and these are the classes. How do I best optimize for this? This is honestly not the best way of going about it, but if you're really interested in maximizing the number of tracks, it probably is. But one tip, I think, and I'm sure a lot of these other people will also agree with this, you should try looking at classes that interest you versus tracks that interest you. Obviously try to like satisfy one track at least, right? But there should be a point where you should be more concerned about the classes rather than the tracks that you're taking, right? So for example, let's say that you're doing a security track, but one summer you did an internship, a machine learning internship, right? And now you realize that if you want to graduate in time, you won't be able to take the machine intelligence track, right? You can easily take CS 471 or CS 373 just as a class to learn about the material. You don't necessarily have to fulfill the requirements, right? But those are sort of like the essentially like the core, sort of the classes that you should always look out for, is like what will help you out in the future, what you're interested in, and obviously make sure that you at least get like one track under the belt before you start like venturing out into like crazy class combinations. Cool. Okay. So speaking about this, Kevin will I'm sure touch upon this a bit more, but hackathons are one of the best, if not the best way of actually exploring not just computer science but CS techniques. I think personally, if you could to any degree, you should at least attend one of these hackathons. So to begin with, what is a hackathon, right? A hackathon is a 24 to 36-hour period where you essentially build something. Usually this is a software related project, but it could be hardware as well. And basically the two hackathons, or the two most well-known hackathons at Purdue, is Hello World and Boilermake. So Hello World is a freshman-only hackathon. It will be hosted by I guess Purdue hackers on October 17th, and it will be a virtual event. And we can give out some more information towards the end of the presentation. Another one is Boilermake. The date written there is wrong. It's not February 27th. It's going to be January 18th, I believe. It's sometime around that. They will be releasing more information about that. Boilermake this year will also be virtual. I'm sure some of you guys have heard that spring semester is going to be kind of similar to what it is now, a blended sort of situation. And Boilermake and both Hello World also, we don't have the permission to actually host a in-person event, and for the right reasons. Kevin, do you want to add anything else to this?
Not much. You hit on it mostly. Of course, it's going to be pretty different this year. I mean, we talked about this in our call out yesterday, that with everything being remote, you're not going to have the full hackathon experience, but we can always just kind of generalize it to say, try to go outside your classwork and the stuff we talked about in the last slide, to build on your own ideas and build on your own projects. And it's going to make, honestly, a huge impact for you.
Yeah, definitely. It serves as a it serves as definitely like resume points. A lot of this we're repeating from what we said yesterday in our call out. So I'll try to make this brief. But essentially speaking, as a freshman, as a sophomore, you don't have as many projects or experience under your belt. And one good way to kind of feel more confident, have more success in getting internships, or just having that nice thing on your resume. It's always nice to do these projects. Also, this is what hackathons allow you to do is essentially understand the open source nature of what the computer science world is like. So a lot of projects in our industry is based on these open source technologies, things that people essentially build and give out for free, right? So as soon as you get familiar with a lot of these ideas like Git, what GitHub is, how to essentially create a project and make it usable for someone else, the more monetizable you'll become. What that basically means is companies will become more interested in you because you're able to contribute to projects and make things that are useful for other people. And at the same time, this will essentially build your skill sets. But yeah, that's really all I have to say for this slide. Okay, so interviews and jobs. This is a pretty big one. I'm sure a lot of you guys are interested in. And one of you guys can start. Not sure who's supposed to talk here.
I think Virat, you were supposed to talk about this, but I can definitely cover this slide.
Really?
But
Okay.
if you're prepared, go ahead. Not a problem.
Okay, I'll just give a quick introduction and then you can go ahead. So essentially, as both Juha and I hinted in the beginning, data structures and algorithms is going to be the class that you take. So first of all, and we'll get into the application process in a bit, but whenever you apply to these companies, they really, what recruiters do is they want people who are essentially able to pass these interviews, right? A recruiter doesn't want to waste time with someone who's not, going to pass this interview. This is the case for most companies. There are obviously other companies that, don't fit this norm, but as a recruiter, you want to sort of maximize the number of, interviews versus, the number of people able to pass the interview, right? That being said, it's really important to know your core data structures and algorithms class. That's what 251 would teach you. But as a freshman, how do you essentially get exposure to this? Because this is a class that you take your sophomore year, right? There are a lot of online resources. CTCI, Cracking the Coding Interview, Coding Bat, and Lead Code are some of the, there you go, are some of the best ways of essentially getting familiar with these ideas and practicing them. I'm personally a big fan of Lead Code, and I recommend everyone here to get Lead Code Premium. And please don't just find friends, share the account, because you most likely won't be getting the most out of your money. It is kind of expensive, so I actually share the account with a friend of mine, and it's kind of affordable. What the benefits are is that, first of all, it motivates you because you're paying money, so that's like, okay, I have to practice because I'm wasting money on this resource, right? So that's like one way of thinking about this. The secondary benefit, which is honestly not that great, but sometimes it could help out, is Lead Code sorts questions by companies. So you'll see on the right hand side, if you go on leadcode.com, is top Google questions, top Facebook questions, so on and so forth. So for example, let's say you have an Adobe interview coming up, right? You can see what kind of questions Adobe asks by just going to the top Adobe questions, and then if you solve them, you'll kind of get a good sense of, okay, dynamic programming is sort of one topic that Adobe likes, or I don't know, maybe like array manipulation, recursion, so on and so forth. Obviously, like your smaller companies won't have like a specific topic, but they have forums on LeetCode that will help you. People will answer and ask questions about, okay, I have a DeepMind interview. What should I prepare for, etc., etc. Yeah, would you like to add anything else?
I can add on to that. So another thing to point out about these sites is that you don't necessarily have to only go on it just to practice your interview skills, because at the end of the day, they're for practice, and in the future you need to have the skill to be able to solve these problems in your real job anyways, or even just to become a better programmer. You need to be constantly learning and practicing and solving problems so you can train your brain to solve harder problems. So this is not only for your interviews, this is also for yourself to become a better programmer and better problem solver. And another thing, Coding Bat, the bottom right one, it's a pretty simple website. Basically, they have just a bunch of questions on different topics like string, array, logic. And actually, my freshman year coming here, I didn't have any computer science experience. So CS 180 was very difficult for me. I didn't know anything about computer science, and it seemed like everyone else knew what they were doing, but I was just behind and not really know where to even really start, because I didn't really have a good concept of what computer science was. So coming out of my first CS 180 midterm, I thought that I failed it miserably. I called my mom and I almost told her, we talked about it, and I almost considered transferring my major to a different one, just because I didn't think that computer science was right for me, because at the time I didn't really know what I was doing. But my mom told me to basically keep pushing. I'm able to do this. And I talked to some upperclassmen, actually people I knew because of Purdue Hackers. I was able to chat with them and get some tips and ask them questions and let them basically guide me. And that was when they told me about Coding Bat. And basically you can go on this website, and they're just by doing the questions, like say 2 or 3 a day, in the beginning they're pretty easy. If you just make sure that you do 2 or 3 a day, you will just have that steady, consistent growth as a programmer, as a problem solver. So so for me, my freshman year, my next midterm, it was just definitely so much easier, just because I didn't rely only on homework or projects in class, but also sought after resources outside, like LeetCode or Coding Bat or Interview, to basically get to know computer science better. So don't be afraid. Once again, don't be afraid to talk to upperclassmen, and definitely spend a lot of time outside of your assignments and classes to basically just improve yourself without professors or classes motivating you to do that.
And how close would you say Coding Bat is to the CS 180 curriculum?
Well, I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
How close would you say CS 180 is to how Coding Bat presents its problems?
I think
it was pretty close. I remember Coding Bat was something I opened up my freshman year, and I also didn't have that much coding experience. And I think the questions on there are a lot closer to the level you might be at working doing CS 180, doing basic Java, that sort of stuff. I didn't touch that much LeetCode until later. I think it's a good place to start. I think it's a good recommendation.
Yeah, definitely a good one to start with. And also, not just this Coding Bat is not only good for preparing for CS 180, but also even for classes like 240, which will be taken the second semester. A lot of the questions, even though it's in C, you would.
Is Yuhao frozen?
He died.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, I can add.
Yeah. Yes, please. Yeah.
So I want to add a little bit to the general interviewing idea. I know we're talking a lot about LeetCode. We're talking a lot about doing coding questions. It's keep in mind, don't be scared by that. It's not all that. focus a little bit on the behavioral part too. Like you want to seem like an approachable person who can learn on the job. I'll tell you, my first internship, I got it towards the end of my freshman year. It was at a huge company in Palo Alto. The interview process for that, I did like a phone call and like 2 Skype interviews over spring break. There was no technical interview. I didn't write any code for them. They didn't ask me any like they didn't really ask me any like hard, strictly technical questions. So like there will be some companies that will like go half. There's some companies that will go very heavy technical. But have some experiences that lend to those behavioral questions. So for me at that time, I was prepared for that interview because I had like a semester and a half of working on teams at Purdue Hackers, organizing events. I was in ACM SIGAP working on like some of their projects. I was doing some extracurricular stuff. I had a lot of hackathons. I had maybe like 5 or 6 hackathons under my belt at that point, but don't do that many. But like I had these team projects that I could talk about, and these experiences of learning that I already had to talk about, that made them kind of see my competency ahead of time, and not really have to test it. And I also prepared for those typical behavioral questions because they will ask you generic behavioral questions. They will ask you, hey, tell us about a time that you worked on it, that you resolved a problem with a team or that kind of stuff. So like, it's not all going to be it's not all, they're not going to be asking you to solve technical problems 100% of the time. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think Yohav's back. Do you want to complete your thought before you cut off? You're talking about C.
I'm not sure where I left out.
You're talking about CS240 and like C.
Okay, yeah. So going back to CS240, basically a lot of questions on the CS240 homeworks you probably have already done them on Coding Bat, just in Java. So if you're able to go through Coding Bat your first semester, then your second semester will be okay. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I don't know what happened back there.
Just to like kind of like add a little asterisk to what Yuha said. Yuha took 240 before Tersha was the head, and a good portion of what he said does apply, but Tersha has definitely changed how the class works a lot, and I think this is actually good to touch upon. So 180 will be a live coding exam. I'm pretty sure that's what it's going to be. I'm not sure how they're going to do it now over over Zoom, but it used to be a live coding structure. 240, the semester that I took it, that was like the first semester, or I think it was done before in summer, but the spring semester, it was a written exam. And that's a very different feel, right? So this is obviously a bit deterring away from the interview/jobs topic, but I think it's good to touch upon. Whenever you take this class, I think it's good that, you know, there's a good chance that the exams are going to be online now, so it might be a bit different. Okay, sorry. So basically, if in the event you have to submit handwritten code, make sure that you practice how to handwrite code. It will be a very different feeling. You know, don't underestimate Tersha's ability to, you know, ask hard questions and things like that. I guess generally speaking, that's like kind of something to append to the last slide. But yeah, as you have said, you know, a lot of the C questions are, or a lot of the CS240 questions will be a lot similar to your Java questions on Coding Bat. And in general, it's good to, like, you know, obviously have, you know, practice these questions in case, you know, you get asked this in interview questions. So just moving on a bit, kind of touching upon the internship search. Apply as early as possible. Make sure that you kind of start applying, you know, this is sort of the month where you should be applying. You should, I actually know a few friends have already received internship interviews already, but that does not mean you're late. I think companies, I'm not sure like when they stop actually like hiring for interns, but the earlier the better. It's COVID season, so things are going to be a lot different. So keep that in mind. But also think about like alternatives to actual traditional internships, right? It's not only just like going to companies and you know, just working there. There are different programs that, and some of them actually pay more than companies as well. That's what you're thinking about. So for example, Google Summer of Code, I think they pay about $6,000 for 8 weeks worth of work. And that figure might be wrong, but Google Summer of Code is a program where essentially they pair you up with an open source organization to kind of, um, you essentially like, you build changes, you upload them to their open source projects. And in a second, I'll kind of get into what sort of that looks like. I'll kind of give you a live demo of GitHub and what that actually looks like and what open source exactly means. So CCO is one of the best ways to get your resume reviewed. You guys are freshmen. You guys should get your CCO, like your resume reviewed by one of these people to give a lot of nice pointers. Obviously, keep this in mind. Don't get discouraged. The chances of you getting rejected is very high. It's just a probability thing. But this is a learning experience. This will make you more familiar with the application process. And even if you do get an interview, the chances of you getting rejected is still also pretty high, right? That's just the case for like anyone. You essentially you send out more applications than the amount that you receive back, and then the chances of you getting an interview from them is even lower, and the chances of you succeeding in one of those interviews is also lower, right? So that's why you should practice, keep on applying, updating your resume, make sure it's perfect. Don't obsess over it. That's something that I've noticed a lot of kids at Purdue fall for. They kind of get trapped into this, I have to find an internship kind of loop. Make sure that, you keep the balance there. But as a slide mentions, juniors are the ones that usually get an internship, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be applying, because, the more applications you send out, the probability of you getting the internship is higher, right? CS Career Fair is coming up. I think it's September 14th. So a lot of big companies are not coming to the career fair for some reason. Like, I don't think Google is or Facebook is, and they usually are, which is a bit unfortunate. So make sure that you don't forget to apply to them online. The next slide will sort of talk about freshman-friendly programs that a lot of big companies have. So you guys should definitely, not only just apply to like those programs, but apply to the more technical ones. Okay, and also obviously there's IR. So Kevin, do you want to like talk about Microsoft Explorer a bit? And then I can also give like I don't think you were ever interviewed for Microsoft Explorer. I'm not sure.
I was not an Explorer. I was a SWE and then
Right.
SWE intern again. But the Explorer program is like, Microsoft has a program for freshmen and sophomores where what they do is you're not exactly a software engineering intern. You guys might, you'll come to realize that with a CS degree, there's kind of two main roles you can end up taking. There's software engineering, and very popular in big companies now, there's project management, where they require people with technical roles, but you're not actually going to be coding. You're actually kind of design the project. You might design the APIs. You might you own something basically, and you have software engineers who do the development for you. So Microsoft Explorer is kind of a role where you take on a mixed role, where you are paired with usually one or two other explorers into like what's called like a pod. And you guys kind of rotate through a software engineering and project management role, and you own something. And then ideally you guys do good and you get a return offer, and then the return offer will be as a software engineering intern or a project management intern, and then so on and so forth. They don't recruit super heavily for this program. Same thing with Google Step and Facebook University compared to their software engineering and their program management intern, but it is one of those like options that you can gun for. I know several Purdue interns who were in the Explore program. But I was a software engineer intern.
Yeah, just to touch upon that a bit. So this is sort of a good chance to get introduced to what the difference is really between a SWE, a software engineer, and a product manager. So like for those of you who are not as keen on the technical aspects of coding, product management is a very good fit. Unfortunately though, I think it might be a bit different in Microsoft from what it sounds like, Kevin, but like at least in Google and Amazon and Facebook as well, you sort of go to become a SWE and then you become a product manager. It doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily jump to product manager, because a lot of these companies sort of require that you have the technical knowledge of, what a product looks like before you actually, design one, right? But typically what ends up happening is after you become a SUI, which is a software engineer, you either just progress in that software engineer, or you become some sort of manager, or you become a product manager. So those are sort of the three kind of routes that it splits on. And these freshman-friendly programs, I should actually say freshman/sophomore-friendly programs, tend to heavily, like the purpose is to introduce you to sort of this, tech ecosphere. But yeah, that's pretty much. Yeah, so make sure that you apply for these. I'm not sure about the deadlines for these, but I know Google's probably not out yet. They're pretty slow in releasing their applications, but Facebook does their things pretty early. Amazon does their things pretty early, and Microsoft also. Okay, cool. Moving on to the next slide. Research. Yeah, so I think someone asked what the process is to become a research assistant slash, how to get involved in research. So I'll sort of talk about my experience, which I think can be semi-ubiquitously applied to everyone. So research is a lot of you probably like came to Purdue thinking that, okay, Purdue research is synonymous, right? Like literally we're advertised as a research university. And that is sort of one of the misleading things about Purdue's research aspect. It's that it's very geared towards graduate students and obviously PhD students. And I heavily despise this. I think a university of Purdue's caliber should cater to its undergrad a lot more. In fact, so right now we're recruiting for Purdue hackers. Our webmaster, one of the projects that, kind of that I'm planning right now, and this is obviously not set in stone, is actually building a research portal for professors where they can actually post their research postings and have pair up students with them, right? Because what ends up happening is a lot of professors end up going to the grad students, or not heavily including their undergraduate students unless like they are very forthcoming, and even then it's very difficult. So I have sort of devised this technique about kind of like going about acquiring research. So my freshman year, I knew I wanted to do machine learning research for some reason. It doesn't have to be machine learning research. Just be happy with the research position you get. But I heavily like hit up all the research professors at Purdue. So on the right hand side, you can kind of see the names of the professors. Most of these are research machine learning oriented, but in general, you have to be very organized with this. So the rule of thumb is for every 20 emails you send out, you get one reply. Okay, that's sort of like what I realized. And is it raining? Okay, if it's raining, I'll have to go inside. But essentially what you want to do is you want to keep track of all the professors you're interested in and make sure that you, if you're interested in someone, go to their office hours, you can talk to them in real life. But essentially the color coding on the right-hand side for email status, so there's 3 colors, right? So green means that they sent me a reply back. Red means that they haven't replied back yet. And yellow means that they replied back, but I'm expecting another reply back. So for example, sometimes professors will say, they'll be like, oh, I'm not doing any research this semester. I'm not getting any undergraduates. Then I'll send up a follow-up being like, okay, but do you know any professors who are, right? So typically you'll get left read on, on a lot of these emails, but, once in a while, there will be that one professor that hits you back and they're like, yo, we have this, you should join us. There are a few professors in my experience that are very, very good at hitting you up with research. And that's Gustavo. So Gustavo, by the way, Gustavo and Dunsmore are your 2 most freshman-friendly professors. If you have any questions about anything research related or anything like that, email them. They will reply back very soon, and they're very nice about it. Aliaga is a pretty cool dude. He does a lot of visual computing stuff, which is a really interesting, nice topic. And Atala too is pretty cool. Atala usually hires like people really like with a lot of experience, but I'm sure he'll be willing to help you out find the nice person. So kind of like touching about what it's like if like, okay, none of the professors responded back, like what should I do next? So you should always be aware of opportunities. So like, for example, Yuhao and I contacted this professor because we heard from one of our mutual friends that this professor was, he needed a research project, right? So that's one way, build up your network, make sure that, you're talking to people who get information and, sort of like a 2-way feedback system. But for me personally, when I got my research project, my freshman year, 2nd semester, it was actually based on pure luck. I saw on the bulletin board, a PhD student in the mechanical engineering department was looking for a undergraduate, research assistant. And he was actually doing a computer vision project, which is kind of, perfectly aligned with one of my interests, which was, I really was interested in CV, and I got the project. The project was definitely like, as an undergrad who probably is just getting started in research, you won't like, even if you have research experience in the past, like through high school, whatnot, you probably won't get like that interesting position. It will be kind of like, okay, something like mine data or, build a spreadsheet kind of thing. But this is sort of the first step, right? You get in the lab, you do this work, and then eventually you'll probably get to the more, cooler, sexier stuff that they get into. But that's essentially the process of becoming an undergraduate research assistant. You should, no one is stopping you from doing multiple research projects. One of our friends, at one point, he was doing like 3 research projects at once. But definitely, like, understand that research can be a heavy load depending on the professor that you're doing it with. But yeah, hopefully that answered your question. Whoever asked that question about how to get a URA position. I'm gonna take that as a yes. But do you think I sufficiently covered what research is, more or less? I'll take that as a yes, guys. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay.
Okay, so that would be mine. One thing that you're gonna have to know is that the first 2 years, at least the core that Purdue offers, the classes that were listed on the left side of the slide a couple of slides ago, they don't necessarily cover everything that you might need to know as a software engineer or just a computer scientist. So for example, web dev, that is not covered. That one you would probably have to just, like, you could go to hackathons, or you could just make your own personal projects in your free time. Just build something. Like, the school is not going to make you make a website. I think, actually, I take that back. There is one project that in 250
It's
252,
It's
but
252.
I don't
Yeah.
know. And Turkster might have done away with it last
No,
year.
Okay.
I don't know if it's back.
When I took it at Gustavo, we did, but that's like involved. Like, you're going to like the how to build it kind of thing. It's not more so like the practical aspects of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was different for you guys.
Like, they're not going to put a lot of emphasis on specifically web dev or Python, which is machine learning, unless of course you go into machine learning in the future, in your junior year, when you choose your machine learning, when you choose your track. And also mobile app dev, they don't really, like, well, CS 180, there will be a project eventually. I think at least my freshman year, there was an Android Studio project with Java, but of course, they don't really go too deep into that. To really learn mobile app, you will kind of have to just spend your own time to basically work on that. And another thing to point out is, for web dev, right now there's a very popular stack called MERN stack. Basically, it's consisted of MongoDB for the database. E is for Express, which is the backend, and R is React, which is the front end of the website, and Node, it kind of goes hand in hand with Express. Both, so basically E and N in the MERN stack both serve as backend. So basically, if you want to get into web dev, I would recommend going on Google and just looking at MERN stack and just look up some. There's definitely a lot of YouTube videos on this stack itself, and if you're able to handle this, you should be, if you're able to learn MERN stack on your own, you should be able to basically handle any future projects, like in your job or any hackathons you go to. Like, if you can master MERN right now, that's the most popular framework that you should go for. So other than that, if you want to go into stuff that's not covered by the core, you can take some extra classes. I believe 390, 490, and 590 are all 1 credit. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that is. I think usually, I think it depends on the class. You have 3 credit 390 classes as well, but I think usually your 490 and 590 classes are 3 credits.
3
But
credit.
Yeah, but I think competitive programming is 1 credit, I believe, one and
Yeah.
maybe 2 credits. Yeah.
Yeah. So these are also classes that we know that cover a little bit of the topics above. So for 390, there it touches on web dev a little bit. 490 touches iOS dev, and 590 covers a little bit of reinforcement learning, which is part of this machine learning. Another way to gain extra skills is to go to workshops, like our workshops, like we mentioned yesterday during our call outs. We have a lot of workshops on, like, in the past we've had workshops on Python or different frameworks. And also another one is epics. I'm actually part of that right now. It is not part of the core, but it's what epics is basically a class that you can take either 1 or 2 credits. It takes place in Armstrong, the engineering building, and basically every week you would go and meet with your team about 2 hours every week. That's how much commitment it usually is. And you go in there, basically you spend the entire semester working on an ongoing project or a new project, depending on the timing, of course. So my sophomore year, I worked on this web project that aimed to basically, it's kind of like a Tinder website for professors at Purdue and local businesses. And it basically links the 2 parties together so that the 2 parties could collaborate instead of professors lacking assignments for their students to do, to give them hands-on experience, and also local businesses, they need talents to basically carry out projects. So in epics, depending on what team you head into, every team is working on different projects. So you'll be able to learn different skills. So if you're thinking about going to epics, it's a good class to take. If you feel like you can take more classes, you can handle more classes, I would say definitely try out epics for at least 1 semester, because you kind of get that real life hands-on experience working with a team, because it's really similar to how you would really work during internship or whatnot. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. I quickly want to clarify on the Star 90 classes. So these aren't just like 1 classes. There are honestly like multiple 390 classes. So 390, for example, there's web application, which is a web dev class that Yuha was talking about. Then there's competitive programming 1, competitive programming 2, and competitive programming 3. And I think they discontinued competitive programming 4. And essentially, and for 490 as well, like there's a lot of 490 classes. So right now I'm in large scale data analytics. Last semester I took iOS dev, and there's obviously data visualization and so on and so forth. And then similar for 590, right? Reinforcement learning, deep visual computing, so on and so forth. But wait, Yuha, would you like to talk about competitive programming a bit, just to sort of, so that people
I have not taken that class, but if anyone has taken that class, could definitely
okay.
step
Yeah,
in.
I can touch upon that a bit, just because I've taken 2 semesters, but I'm not sure if someone else has more experience with it. But competitive programming in general is something that a lot of you guys should look into. You don't have to necessarily participate. So competitive programming basically means like, you're competitively coding essentially. So you have a question and then you answer it, code it out. And if you pass the test cases, you're good to go, right? A lot of interviews are based on these competitive programming questions. So for example, if you go on LeetCode, they have contests, but there are other sites like, it's called a UVA competitive something. They also do these competitive programming questions. And I think there's and this is very similar to the, what is it called? USICO, United States of America Computing Olympiad, if you have done that in the past. But in general, we offer multiple semesters of CP. I think even if you're taking 180, you are able to sign up for CP1, which is like the 1 credit competitive programming class. They essentially go over these questions and you solve them, and it's good practice. It's sort of like what Yuha was talking about in terms of like essentially building up whenever you talk about coding, about how you practice essentially, and that's how you kind of keep your algorithmic ideas fresh and learn more about coding, about algorithms, about data structures, etc., etc. Yeah. So CP is definitely like probably like one of the most important 390 classes. Not that the others aren't. It's just very applicable to a lot of areas of what you'll eventually be doing. Okay. Minors. Karen, I think that's you.
Yeah. So if you're considering getting a minor, I would, the broadest piece of advice I would say is to just go for something that interests you. It's like, don't force yourself down some route for a minor. Just to have an extra thing on your diploma. The easiest thing you can get with Purdue CS is going to be the math minor. The only difference, I say easy, it's the math department. Nothing's going to be easy in the math department, but it's the least additional effort, because the only difference is you have to take MA 351 to fulfill your linear algebra requirement, instead of, what's the other class,
265, I think.
265, yeah.
Yeah, and I think they might have changed that as well. I'm not sure. I might be wrong, but
yeah.
But anyways,
I don't think so, but maybe. Yeah, MA 351 is the elementary linear algebra. It's the same material, just taught differently. And then after you take that, you just have to get one extra class for the minor. It's going to be real analysis or abstract algebra, I think, are the options. There might be a third. So you can get a math minor that way. In addition to math, you can look into liberal arts minor. I know people doing CS getting political science minors, Spanish minors. I know someone doing physics, all sorts of stuff. Consider there's something called the Certificate Entrepreneurship. You take a class, ENTR 200. And then I think there's maybe like 2 or 3 other classes you have to take. After that, it's just a few classes and you can get the certificate of entrepreneurship if you want to learn, if you want to, I think that's essentially like the better option of like a business minor, where if you want to kind of learn about entrepreneurship, kind of network a little bit more, sort of build business plans, it's a really great option. A lot of CS students end up taking this, and I've heard pretty good feedback about it. So studying abroad, it's actually kind of, I had this experience because last fall I was applying for study abroad for this spring. So I was actually studying in Stockholm at KTH this past spring. So I know a little bit about this, and I really recommend, if you're thinking about studying abroad, to contact someone who's been in a program you're interested in, or just someone like me who's been through this system before, because it's kind of dense. The CS department, if you just want to study abroad somewhere and take classes there, I mean, you can usually very easily apply the same way through the study abroad system to do that. But if you actually want to get CS department credit for studying abroad, the CS department is notoriously a little bit stingy about approving credits abroad. Basically, the head of each track has to review the school and the courses that you're considering taking, and they'll give you yeses or nos for each course and what like equivalency credit you want, or elective you want. So you need to very early on communicate your intention to go abroad, email the study abroad office and set up a meeting with one of their advisors. Email the computer science study abroad liaison. It was Nicole Towner last year. It's someone else now. I don't know who it is, because I don't think she works on that anymore. Maybe she does. And then that person, the CS study abroad liaison, can actually like give you lists of what CS students went to what schools even. So when I wanted to go to Europe, she gave me a list. Hey, these are the schools that have been approved in the past. And I saw they were mostly in England and Sweden. And that helped me hone down my options, do my research, do my little bit of legwork, and actually and just apply and get into the program. And then I did this, like I said, last semester. I generally would recommend doing this a little bit later. Once you finished your core CS courses, maybe you can get like some productive study abroad experiences early on. I would recommend it like junior year. It can actually be cheaper than coming to Purdue. I got like the Purdue Move scholarship that was like $10,000 or something. And then I also took a class called SAIL that you would just take remotely while you're studying abroad. And as long as you finish this class, it's literally just like once a week, like you write something basically, you get like a $2,000 scholarship like the next semester. For me, studying in Sweden was cheaper than coming to Purdue. And for me personally, like coming to Purdue is not even that expensive. So like in my case, for my school, KTH, I basically just paid Purdue tuition. Um, because it's an exchange program, and that's how most exchange programs are. That's not the same with all programs, of course. But yeah, it's a really great chance to travel a couple countries. I went to maybe 6 or 7 countries between like January and like late March. Saw a bunch of cities. It was my first time abroad, so that was super fun. Definitely talked to a couple of study abroad returnees. When you talk to the study abroad office, they can even give you a list of, hey, these students have been in this program recently. So if it's something you're interested in, I recommend it, but do a little bit of the legwork.
Awesome. Okay, work-life balance.
All right, so we can take it lighter. So
by the way, I think it's 7, so just letting you guys know.
okay, we'll try to wrap this up then.
Yeah.
Work-life balance is a pretty important one, just because you know, you don't want to overwork your brain too much. If you just constantly stay in your room, stare at your computer, you know, you can finish all your assignments and then just do nothing but coding. You could overwork your brain and be counterproductive. So just make sure that you also take time to enjoy your time at college. You know, you're on a great campus. It's beautiful. The co-rec, you could always go there and work out. I promise you, if you had a really stressful day, you go for a workout, you come back, you definitely feel a lot better physically and mentally too. You can find a lot of events going on. At least last year, you could find a lot of stuff going on Facebook. Now there's a pandemic, definitely harder, but still there's still stuff going on for sure. You can go on Boiler Link. It's an URL with events that all the clubs at Purdue basically post their events to. And PMU is a great organization. They often throw nights like events like movie nights, or like last year for Halloween they had a Spooktoberfest. So pretty fun events there too. And on Facebook, of course, you can just go on Facebook and search for stuff that's happening this weekend or this week. Doesn't matter. Wabash Landing 9 is a great theater. I think on Tuesdays they have reduced price. I think it's maybe $5 or $7 for a movie, or something pretty cheap. And regularly it's still pretty cheap. It's still within like around $10 for a movie. So definitely a good place to watch movies. Skating rink in the winter, right next to Wabash, there's a skating rink, and the price is not that expensive. So another place to go to. Celery Bog, you can take a bus. I don't remember which one, but if you have the app, I think it's called, I have it here, it's called My City Bus. If you use that app and just put in Celery Bog as your destination, you could take a bus there really easily. It's basically a park right next to really nice water, and just a good place with nice trails to walk around in. Caps, I'm sure if you did BGR or just have people talk to you about Purdue offers a free therapy session for everyone at CAPS. So if you just go on their website and you just feel like you're under a lot of stress, or you're going through something in life, some personal problems, don't be afraid to reach out to CAPS, because mental stress or therapeutical problem, they're not really problems. Like just like when you get sick physically, there's no shame going to the doctor. And if you're just too stressed out, don't feel ashamed to reach out to someone. Like schoolwork could definitely do that to you. So Don't be afraid to do that. After the pandemic, of course, there's a lot more stuff going on. There's a lot of concerts, like SCC. You can find them on. I think they're independent. I'm not sure if they're related to Purdue, but they're an organization that often just find artists and let them come to Purdue to perform. Sometimes they perform at Slater, sometimes they perform at Elliott. You can find them on Instagram. I think you can just search up SCC Purdue or something and follow them, and they definitely post events that's going on their Instagram. Elliott concerts, you can find posters around the campus about their events. Like one example of like shows they throw is like a Christmas show. I'm not sure they're gonna have. It's canceled this year, but next year, I think it's a pretty great show to attend during Christmas time. It's pretty wholesome. Slater concerts, another one like previously mentioned, and also games, football games. Purdue football games, basketball games. Purdue's Big Ten is known for sports, so make sure you don't miss out on that. Yeah, so that's pretty much what we have here. But there's always so much going on around campus. So just keep your eyes peeled and enjoy college.
Yeah, just to touch upon that a bit, we get a lot of notable speakers. Steve Wozniak spoke, I think, a semester or two ago, and I went. It was amazing. We have a lot of cool speakers again. I think a past Secretary of State was also here, and I think she was good friends with like Mitch Daniels. So, anyways, it's just like nice. Keep your eyes peeled out for these. You don't want to miss a lot of these events. It'll be, as you know, we keep on prefacing, it'll be a lot different. But it's still, just be vigilant, at least if not for this year, at least for next year, because there's a good chance that, a lot of these things will return back.
Yeah. And to add on to that, should have mentioned like Elliott, they bring some famous people to perform here. Like 3 years ago, we had Ty Dolla. Before I got here, I think they had Lady Gaga over one time. 2 years ago, they had Rich Brian performing, and I'm sure a lot of other artists that I might have not paid attention to. You guys probably have known them. So Elliott brings in pretty decent artists to perform at Purdue.
Also, I know we're like going on, but this is kind of cool. They bring in a lot of multicultural artists too. So I'm not sure if like any of you guys are into like Hindi songs or whatnot, but they brought in Mickey Singh, and he's like, I'm not sure if you guys know, like he's like super famous, right? And still like relatively like he's obviously well known, but definitely not as much as like other artists. But they definitely like try to encompass their student population, which is really, really nice, and very good efforts by them, and it definitely shows. But okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, yeah, so join clubs. This is one of the best ways to create long-lasting solid networks. A lot of my friends I found through these clubs. So be sure that you kind of even though you think you might not particularly enjoy this particular club, it's always nice to check them out, go to their call out, see what they're about, talk to their people, and if anything, you'll at least like have some face-to-face time with a lot of these seniors, a lot of these people who are pretty accomplished, have done a lot of cool stuff. It's just nice to like this is like something that they should have taught us, but like referrals. For example, like if I need a Facebook referral or a Microsoft referral, or someone goes to Google or whatnot, I can just like literally text any of these senior people that I know and be like, yo, can you hit me up with a referral? And just to explain what a referral is, like for example, if you're applying to a job or an internship, if you have a referral, the chances of your resume getting seen become significantly higher because it's sort of like a person who's vouching for you, right? So always keep that in mind. It's really important to build that network. And there's a lot of like, it's a exponential game. There's a lot of branches that CS can take you, right? It's not necessarily just software engineering. You could become a research assistant, something like that, right? So the more people you talk to who are part of these clubs, who are kind of into like seeking different kinds of knowledge, the more you learn about things that you might be more interested in, right? Because maybe now you guys might think that, okay, software engineering is the only thing that I can do with this degree, right? But there's lots of like stuff. One of the past members of this club is doing a research job, which is kind of very different from software engineering. He's like developing algorithms and things like that, which is kind of different. And it just all comes from interacting and talking to these people. There are other clubs too, like CSWN, which is the Computer Science Women's Network. You don't have to be woman to or a female to join this club. It's open to everyone, but it is geared towards diversity and diversity kind of events. Boilermake is another great organization. So if Purdue Hackers kind of organizes Hello World, Boilermake organizes Boilermake, which is like Purdue's premier hackathon. They're pretty cool too. I'm part of that. I am on their dev team, and it's a really nice, cool environment. Really fun. Bit different from Purdue Hackers, but just another platform to interact and talk to people. Obviously, Purdue Hackers is the best CS club on there. That's a given. That's why obviously. And just a little bit more about Purdue Hackers. We host events. We meet every Tuesday at 6 p.m. These are some of our events. We had a call out yesterday, so I won't go too in depth into what Purdue Hackers does. But essentially, we organize a lot of events. We organize Purdue Hello World, and yeah, that's about it. Do you guys have any? So this is our socials. And okay, let's first start with if you guys have any questions. And this is our exit survey, so please fill it out. This will give us a good idea as to what aspects of the club or the presentation you liked. If some of the topics that we touch on was kind of pointless, we won't bring that up next year or next semester, because this was our first time holding an Introduce CS workshop. I'm not even sure how it came about, but this was something that was important, and hopefully you guys enjoyed. Okay, let's do this. I'll throw this in the chat, and then I'll leave this in the I'll leave this at the socials page. Okay, so let's go here and what is this? Exit survey. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see this. Let's look at the questions real quick. So apps are open, I think. If you go on bit.ly/page application, this should be open. The deadline, and I think Shruti's in the chat. The deadline is September 18th at 11:59 p.m. So please get that. Oh, is it not open yet? Oh, okay, this might be for Hello World. Okay, no, sorry, I was talking about PH applications. My bad. Yes.
Are you going to post this PowerPoint they're asking?
Yeah. So this meeting is getting recorded. This will be posted on YouTube, and we'll be posting other slides as well. This will be posted most likely on Slack, and we can send out an email too, I guess. But yeah, all the information will be out somewhere. Yes, join our Slack. Go on our website, sign up for our mailing list. Yeah, another application for in spring. Yeah, we usually do recruit. Yeah, sorry, continue, Kevin.
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, I won't be here in spring, but
yeah,
I would hope so. I assume so.
I won't be either, so the precedent spot will be open.
We usually do spring callouts as well. We do recruiting twice a year.
That's a good question. So I'll give my honest take, and you guys can feel free to correct me. I'm personally not a big fan of double majoring in two things that are similar, because what you learn eventually is a lot of things in CS is once you kind of have the benchmark, you can learn things by yourself, kind of thing. And DS and CS are very similar. I'm personally a fan of, if you're doing a double major, it makes sense to do a mathematics major because that's kind of a different subrealm, but even maybe something else like business, or maybe like political science, or like some of your other interests. So like, for example, if you're interested in reinforcement learning or developing brain-computer interfaces, right? It's important to have knowledge of neuroscience. That's kind of like something that you should think about. That, okay, if I have computer science and I can blend that with my neuroscience knowledge, imagine like how many cool things that you do. And BCA is a pretty it's a up and coming and blossoming realm. I'm not sure if you guys have looked at Elon Musk's Neuralink's presentation. It's kind of a big thing. But I don't know, you guys feel free to, I don't know, up to you. This is just my opinion, by the way. This is not, I don't think this is consensus by any means, but do either of you guys or anyone have any opinion about double majoring in CS and DS?
If you're interested in data science stuff, you can just consider focusing on a machine intelligence track or databases track, or one of those. if that might be enough for you, if not be. I don't have strong feelings about it. I don't think.
Wait, can you say the question out
I
loud
think
before?
you'll be okay.
Oh, okay. You're talking about the CS and DS or the? Yeah,
Oh, this
I
is
mean,
about this SDS stuff.
yeah. Okay, just to like append to that a little bit. If it's very difficult to get it, if it's like very similar, go for it, I guess. But yeah, in general, talk to your advisor. See that you're not just like taking classes that might not necessarily benefit you.
Yeah.
But yeah. Do you guys recommend
Uh,
graduating a year early if you have credits?
yeah. Why not?
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
well, whether you were out a year and a half early.
Okay, so um, there's obviously financial side to this, and then there's a actual learning aspect of it. So something to think about is when you graduate early, not only are you saving the tuition amount that you are going to be spending at Purdue, you'll be earning that as well, right? So that's kind of like a double opportunity cost. Something else to think about is if you graduate early, you start early and you get promotions earlier, right? That's just things to think about. But at the same time, I don't really think there's a particular advantage to graduating early. It's you have these are like 4 years of your life that you most likely are not getting back. So it's important to enjoy them. Um, I don't know. Feel free to. I don't know yet, right? This will be after I graduate that I can actually give like
Yeah.
good advice.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, a lot of people graduate early, like a lot. Usually it's like half a year early or sometimes a year.
yeah, that's a very good question. So is it better to do a co-op or a lot of internships than research projects? Okay, so just to clarify for people who don't know what a co-op is basically an internship that happens mid-semester. And there's multiple ways of going about this, right? If you're able to do a co-op, that means you're able to probably do your classes then and graduate early, right? So you're essentially expediting your graduation track and getting the full-time job earlier. That being said, uh, certain universities like Canadian, like you guys should look up Waterloo's co-op program. They're known for the co-op programs. And I certainly think that if you kind of want to graduate, uh, in a regular amount of time, like 4 years, but you kind of don't feel like, filling in with random classes, a co-op is a great way of going about this. And the problem is though with co-ops is that a lot of companies don't do co-ops. Microsoft doesn't, Google does, and a lot of other big companies do. So I would definitely recommend that you take a look into this. But in general, a lot of companies don't do too many co-ops. That being said, um, if your question is internships versus research projects, that is almost always internships, unless your paper is going to get published into like ICML, which is like a big, a big journal or something like that. Internships just are a very good way of solidifying your experience and letting recruiters know that, okay, this guy knows his stuff, he has the experience. Research on the other side, on the other hand, is something that you should consider if you don't have the internship. For example, my freshman year, I did not get an internship. So I ended up doing a research project. Turns out it was like a very good experience for me, and I was able to like, definitely leverage that in many of my, future like interviews. But that is just something to keep in mind. Yeah, hopefully that answers the question. That's a good point. Co-ops are something that I've not talked about Purdue more, but I think it should be because it's a really interesting take to, sort of, it's like a study abroad more or less, but you're just working or like taking a break. Okay. Let's stay until 7:20. In case there are any more questions. I'm gonna plug in the survey again. Just in case. Please do fill this out. It does really help us. The way we organize events are based on a lot of suggestions by people. And please fill out the application if you're interested in joining Purdue Hackers. I'm not even like leaving you guys. We are literally the best club on campus, not even the best CS club. So you should definitely apply. Should I actively or passively look for internships as a freshman? Do any of you guys want to take this question?
I think it's worth being active because I mean, I found my first semester was, I mean, I had like a decent amount of time on my hands, and um, even if, I mean, I did find an internship after freshman year, but that was not until March. But I found that because I was actively searching in the fall, I had the experiences at career fairs, talking directly to recruiters, as well as with some interviews and failing some interviews, and failing a lot of interviews. So those negative experiences kind of build up for you, and like you learn a lot from it. And then you learn how to master the sort of recruiting experience, and you learn how to master the interviewing experience. And even if you don't find something, you get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to touch upon that, if you're a international student, please don't be discouraged. You'll be hearing a lot less than your domestic counterparts. That's just part of the game. That just means that you have to try a little bit more extra to get that internship, the first internship. But it's, yeah, what Kevin said.
Yeah, and even though, of course, it's definitely harder to get an internship as a freshman, that is, like mentioned before, it's not impossible. For example, my internship this past summer at Bank of America, I was put on a team with basically 4 interns, and I was the rising senior, and the other 3 were actually all freshmen. They were rising sophomores. So definitely not impossible, and it's definitely great if you could get one. If not, it doesn't really matter because in your sophomore year, you'll be definitely way more prepared than everyone else, than those who have not, applied to places or even gotten interviews. Because as a freshman, you might be able to get an interview, and then you would just be able to get to know what an interview is like. So even if you don't get the internship from that interview, next year you have a lot more time to know how to prepare for it. And also that's why we recommended this book, because it not only does it cover questions that might be asked during interviews, it also dives into how you can prepare for interviews, and the preparation really starts like many months before your actual interview and your applications. And I would say should definitely stay active looking for internships, and I would say just start now, because really recruiting season, even though it's late September or early October, you should really just start when the school year starts, so you can get a head start than everyone else. And once again, don't be discouraged, because even for me as a junior, I applied to, I don't know, at least probably 70 companies, and eventually I ended up with, once I got my second offer, I just took it. You don't it's not like you apply to 70 and you would get 50 offers. So don't be discouraged.
Regarding
Yeah.
housing, someone asked about this. So it depends on the company. I'll give you my experiences.
Can you read out the whole question just for the YouTube?
Yeah, so he said, I'm not sure what to, I thought such companies are mostly located at cities away from Purdue. How would the housing work generally, especially from an international perspective? It depends on the company. My first internship was in Palo Alto, the most expensive city in the country. And the company I interned for, HPE, they straight up just gave me a stipend of $4,000 roughly for the 3 months, which is not enough to live in Palo Alto. I had a roommate though who was also from Purdue and interning there, and with our stipends combined, we were able to make it work, and we found an apartment just outside Stanford. Some companies will do more work for you. Because then my second internship at Microsoft, they give you an option. Either you take a $7,000 stipend, or the complete package where they house you in a hotel. And that's what I took, because there's a big social aspect to it, but that's a whole other topic. So that's what they would call corporate housing, where some companies will give you corporate housing and handle all of that for you. And you'll have all that settled for you. Again, some will not give you anything. Oftentimes those will be the companies that are in less expensive cities, like Omaha, maybe Chicago, where they might pay you enough that you can manage to sublease something for 3 months on your own. There's definitely, a bit of adulting to do to get there. a bit of legwork to do there, but usually usually can be pretty comfortably figured out as long as you do that bit of work.
Yeah. So in general, the key rule is if the company is located in downtown, they'll give you a stipend most likely if they're a big company. So for Amazon, for example, they gave us or gave me comfortable amount of money for the housing stipend. And if I wanted, I could stay in my studio apartment or whatever. It would still be more or less fine. But yeah, definitely think about housing stipend, how to because it's money that's just given to you. So think about pocketing too. So roommates are always a good idea.
Yeah.
But yeah. Another question here that I just want to say out loud was, would other hackathons be virtually available this year? And Kevin answered it, but the answer is yeah. So Hello World and WaterMake, and check out knowledge.io. Yeah. So what sources do you recommend for learning DSA, data structures and algorithms? Will CTCI teach everything? Yeah, so CTCI will teach most things. By the way, so you saw Yuhao hold the book up. It is I'm not sure how expensive it is, like $20. I personally think it's worth buying it, but as I said, whenever you spend money on things, you kind of just feel motivated to do it. But there's obviously as I said, I just looked up like CTCI PDF and I found the whole PDF, right? So you don't have to buy it. But this essentially goes through the interview structure, but more specifically topics that are usually asked. And it makes it a bit nicer too, like certain topics that won't be asked frequently, like for example, design patterns and Java related stuff. These things will be prefaced that, okay, if you're interviewing for a junior role, it most likely won't be asked. Keep in mind that if you're interviewing for a specific role, like for example, if you're interviewing for, I don't know, like a front end position, your interview might be different. Like for example, it won't be, solve this data structure. It might be, how do you sort of design this web page or, things like that using the MERN stack. But it will usually teach you everything. So I recommend reading CTCI pretty much like front to back. You don't have to solve the problems, but just to be familiar with the ideas, and then go on LeetCode and solve the questions, because CTCI will give you sort of the knowledge that you need or be aware of and what to know, and LeetCode will essentially allow you to have a nice platform to can I open this up right now? It will give you a kind of like a nice interface to you can organize questions by different types and things like that. So by the way, this is how LeetCode looks like. As you see, I clearly haven't been here in a while.
Me too. Wendy, once you have a job, you just stop thinking about it.
But yeah, pretty much you will be doing the algorithms questions. As I said, this is for most cases. Like once you get to the full-time position, there might be some concurrency questions, some DB questions, and as you see, they're listed by topics and they're listed by top companies. So for example, let's say you have a Amazon interview coming up, hit up top Amazon questions, and this will sort of just like, okay, these are the questions. Yeah, our internships usually paid. I wonder if you guys can take this question.
Yeah. To quickly add on with the DSA thing, there's also courses like you can go on to like Coursera or edX or something and find find courses specific to data structure stuff. So you don't have to just going straight to LeetCode, you might not directly learn them that fast. I think someone had a question. Were you about to ask? Someone unmuted.
No, I just want to quickly add on to this. There's a really, okay, so I can't find it, but the dude that writes the algorithms book, he teaches at Princeton, and his name is Cedric. He has a course on Coursera, and it's honestly like a very good course. I've seen a lot of videos of it. So if you want to get a head start, feel free. Yeah. So our internships usually paid. So that's what I think.
Yeah, usually internships, I mean, in the United States, if you're doing productive work for a company, you legally have to be paid. And for software engineering internships, the range is usually around, it can be anywhere from $15 to $50 an hour-ish. I mean, it kind of is iffy because like sometimes you're salaried as well. Like at Microsoft, I was salaried. I think I was hourly at HP. And it of course also matters, depends on where you live. If you're living in the Bay Area, you're going to be paid more because there's a high cost of living there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like that range could also change depending on if it's a software engineering internship, right? So if you're doing a quantitative internship, I know Kevin and I talk about this a lot, but like, for example, if you're working at a hedge fund or something, that number will look drastically different, right? It won't be 50 to 50. It'll be more like 45 to like 80, right? Okay, 80 might be a bit of a stretch, but still, it'll be like on the higher
Yeah,
side.
for an intern,
Yeah.
yeah, you're still looking maybe 50, 60 most.
Yeah. But obviously, like, you know, it depends on the kind of internship and the location. So precisely. I really wonder, is this at the Purdue Hackers website? So this will be somewhere in the Slack posted.
We do have a resources page. Do you know how to edit it?
Wait, that's the thing, right? I don't, because Luke, I don't have the dot environment keys. This will be we'll be sending out an email most likely with the resources, and then it will be in our Slack. But don't worry, you will definitely be able to find the resources afterwards. I'm not sure if any of you guys are part of the Slack, but you might have noticed if you were part of the call out yesterday that we already have the video up on our YouTubes. So yeah, be sure to like, comment, like, and subscribe. But yeah, right here.
I also wanted to add about the leak code and like HackerRank kind of part. Can people hear me? Okay.
Oh yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
If you're doing a medium, like especially if you're a freshman and you came in without any experience like I did, if you're doing a medium and you're struggling with it, it's perfectly normal. It's very hard even for me. So like, don't stress out if you're just passing through the easy ones.
There are definitely like hard, easy questions as well. I'll be lying to you if I'll tell you that I can easily do all the easy questions. Like you can see like the difficulty of questions by the number of people that have answered it, right? Even in the easy section, a lot of the the questions toward the end can get a bit tricky. But essentially, thank you for bringing this up, Beatrice. Most companies ask easy to medium questions. Obviously, like some more questions, like hard, like for example, it's a well-known fact that Google and Facebook ask like the hardest interview questions. Like they'll be most likely like dynamic programming questions, or like somewhere on the harder, like, you know, the medium range of the medium spectrum. But for example, like other companies, you know, it obviously depends. So that's why it's like nice to get a good feel of like kind of questions to ask by, you know, browsing the top Facebook questions, top Microsoft questions.
Yeah. Even I would struggle on the leak code medium, and like they're representative of a lot of the questions you'd get for interviewing for full-time roles, for new grad roles. And like on top of that, like if I were to do a leak code medium right now, like I could probably solve the problem, but then there's a whole other dimension to it where you want to solve it in the best way. You want to solve it in an efficient way, in a fast way. And once you take classes like 251, once you take classes like 381, especially, you're going to be obsessed with that kind of stuff too. And then there's a whole optimization like dimension to it as well. So yeah, the leak code's hard. You might not be ready for it now. Don't worry, you'll get there.
Yep. Also, speaking of time, you know, interviews are constrained amount of time, 45 minutes, depending on the kind of interview. So you have to solve it within a time. So yeah, practice, I guess, is what everyone will say. And obviously it applies to a lot of things in life. So yeah. Cool. I didn't see any questions, so I'm guessing everyone is mostly done. By the way, I'm not sure how many people, I'm not able to see how many people are actually like still live, but be sure to apply to 20. Okay, be sure to apply to PH, bit.ly/PH application. This will be one of, well, you know, applications closed on September 18th, obviously, as I said, best club on campus. So yeah. And if any of you guys have any questions after the interview, or sorry, after the workshop, Slack us, email us on purduehackers@gmail.com. Should probably add that here. Email purduehackers@gmail.com. Follow us on the social media. And yeah, that's about it. Do you guys want to say anything else before we wrap up? Also, take our exit survey. That's like the third time I've mentioned that, but yeah. Okay, cool. In that case, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and thank you everyone for coming. This was a very good workshop. I guess obviously, like, I'll look at the exit survey and see kind of range, you know, how well I guess we did. But it seems like you guys were pretty interactive. You guys were asking good questions. So thanks a lot for that. Yep. Okay, cool. In that case, I'll see you guys later. Bye.
All right. Thank you.